one of the reasons why I'm always trying to be someone that is helpful and like provide resources and whatever is because I didn't know what I didn't know. And like, granted, that partially because I didn't think I needed like to learn at that point because you don't know that you need to learn, yes, but partially it does kind of feel like there is all this information that's kind of hoarded until you find it, and you don't know where to look. And so I'm always trying to like help people because I didn't know what I didn't know. I queried 100,000 word romance novel. Like what? Like what? Now I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Hello, and welcome to So I Wrote a Book, Now What? Where writers chat about writing. My guest today is Christine Goss. She's an author and an agent with Fine Print Literary. I'm so excited about our conversation. We talked everything from revisions to trusting your own voice when it comes to feedback and the challenges of being both an author and an agent. I can't wait to share it all with you. Let's get into it. Hi, Christine. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So, what made you decide to write a book?
Having an extreme book hangover, basically. Uh, I just kept reading and reading and reading, and at one point I was like, "Man, something's not hitting this itch that I have," and I was like, I'm gonna write." I mean, I've always been a storyteller throughout my life. I have like little bound books I have from elementary school, and like I played The Sims and made stories, and so I've always been a storyteller. But book hangover really made me like sit down and write a book. Whether it was good, no, it's not. But I actually started the process of writing and then, proceeding on to learning more about publishing.
Was it a specific book that gave you the hangover, or was it a build up?
Um, the idea of you. Like that book, like I think I really wanted the ending to be kind of like how the movie ended. Like I needed
Mhm.
the happy I mean, spoiler alert, happy ever after.
Yeah,
And so I
it's been out for a while. You've had your opportunities,
right,
people.
right. So I wrote basically a book that did have the happy ever after, and it was a famous person, normal person. It didn't have the age gap, but I wrote I wrote it to definitely have that cure my hangover, so to speak.
It's awesome. When you sat down to write it, did you plot it out first, or did you just write it as it comes?
I I didn't like really I didn't know story structure in the sense that I do now. Like I didn't know Save the Cat and like all the beats. I knew generally how a story was told and how I enjoyed reading it. So like, does it follow the beats? Yes. When I initially wrote it, was it overwritten? Yes. So like there was no craft involved other than me telling a story and being well read, so I knew how a story could be told.
And when you tackle a project now, do you go into it with your idea and just sit to write, or do you plot it out now? Has your process changed since the first book?
Yes, I mean, I'm a plantser now, so I'll plot and pants. Like generally, like I have an idea of where the story is going because like for me to sit down and write, I at least have to know the ending because I have to know my end goal. But and I think now more so on the front end, I work on, you know, really getting to know the characters. Whereas before, I mean, and granted, sometimes I do just innately seem to know them pretty well. Um, Usually what happens is I'll get an idea and it's like a very visceral like vision for first chapter. And like then I'm like, okay, this is my first chapter, this is where I'm gonna go, and then it builds off of there. I still don't do an explicit outline of like this is what happens at each beat, but usually I have a list of scenes I know I want to get to and build to and kind of know where they need to hit. And then I'll go back and kind of adjust where I need to if it's not working pacing wise.
Will you ever write the scenes out of order, or are the scenes always written like chronologically in order, or like in the order they would go in the book?
Yes. I mean, do they eventually maybe switch once I'm like the pacing isn't working? But I am very like I need to go as the story goes. I can't like write the ending first. Like I know what I want the ending to be in my head, but I can't write. I don't know why. It just like my kind of gives me anxiety or like makes me anxious, and it just is like I need to like do all the things because what if I miss this and then I get this all twisted around. So yeah, I'm very much A B C D, going down the runway, I guess.
Hmm. I am the same. Um, for some reason, my brain just won't let me. Like, sometimes I'll see scenes farther ahead, but
Right.
like I can't do it.
Oh,
Can't go there until I get there.
I feel that for sure.
Yeah, where do you get your inspiration to write your book?
Oh man. Kind of all over. I mean, it's like kind of my first one was based on a book Hangover. The one I am polishing to, and probably by the time this is out, querying, is inspired by Reputation, the album. So, it kind of has been like all over, and the inspiration strikes, and then it kind of just takes off, and I was even driving through a small town over the summer, and I was like, wow, it would be so great for a book to be set here. And then my mind just started like going woo 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 woo, and then all of a sudden I had this like whole thing of like and all these characters, and I was like, oh, okay, like it's just random, and it's kind of just from anything, I guess.
So once you have the story on the page, then where do you go? What do you do? What's your revision process look like? And has that shifted?
God, I wish it would shift. I mean, I was just complaining about this,
Same.
right? Like, it's like, I wish it was more efficient for me, at least. I was talking with someone about this. I was like, I wish I could be like a very low number drafter. Like, there are people that are very buttoned up with drafting, and that's wonderful. Like, I would love to be them, but I'm just so not. I don't know what it is with my mind, but mostly like a lot of my drafts are like I have so many typos, and I don't know if it's a I don't know why. I just am like I'm a typo queen. I think I have that in like all my social media bios because I can't even tweet or do anything without a typo, and it's just so my drafts are usually plentiful between the you know the craft side of it, first doing the developmental and being sure everything's hitting right, and then doing the line level stuff. And even through all these things, then I still have to just go through with like magnifying glass and be like, okay, where are the typos? And I still miss them. It drives me nuts. But yeah, so my drafting
Me too.
my drafting is plentiful and um, draining. So, well, I'm glad we're in the same boat. I'm glad it's like I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how they slip through. And like I run it through like the grammar checks and the spelling checks. It's like I need a third check.
Right? And it's
Another check.
I can do it on my like I'll read on my Kindle, or I'll have it printed off, or I'll read it on my phone. I'll do in all these tips and tricks they tell you to do, and they do work because I do catch them. And yet,
Hmm.
there's still more. Yeah.
Do you have beta readers for your projects?
Yes. I have many, which is great. Could always use more because I'm always, like I said, so many rounds of revisions, and then once it has already been read, sometimes it's hard to have someone take the time out of their day to read it again, or to have someone read it without knowing like any of the twists. But yeah, I I've been very lucky in finding amazing people who understand craft, who are also like gentle and kind with their feedback, but also like I trust them and their feedback, and they give it to me straight while still being gentle and kind, if that all makes sense. So
Hmm.
it's I'm very grateful for the people I have found and the people I have in my corner.
How did you find them?
I found a few through Bianca's beta reader matchup, which is phenomenal. I love that. And then I think I did it 3 times, which because I was just like, let me collect little writer people. Let me just keep growing my little circle. A lot of times it's been just like DMing people, being like, oh hey, like or just corresponding enough online to then where it like grows into something more, which has been fun. And then to meet those people in real life has been fun. So yeah, it's just kind of been, I think that was the hardest part initially, was first putting myself out there to then meet other people, which is like also then putting your work out there. But it's worth it's worth it. It's worth the work, and it's like worth the kind of scariness and stress of initially like being pushed over the hump. But it's been, yeah, I'm so very grateful.
What stage of your drafting do you send it to your beta readers?
Probably too early. I mean, to be honest, like I send it and then I mean, it's just like truly everything I do is a little too early. Like I get delusional, but it's so funny. Like I'm just like this cyclical person where it's like, oh, this isn't that bad. And then I'll go back and read it. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, what was I thinking? And mostly it's because again, the typos and like, I'm just like, oh God, they probably don't even know what I'm trying to say. So I probably could do another round of just for typos type of thing. But like I said, my focus initially is on developmental first, and then I'll go through to do more of the line editing because it's not wasting your time, but taking this when you're a many person draft or many draft person, taking the time to focus on line level stuff to where like you might just totally get rid of it to me is like I need to be efficient. So I focus on the story working and then making it work with the smaller granular things, which are just as important, just something I do later in the process.
That makes a lot of sense. It's funny too that you mentioned like being delusional and sending it too early because you do have to be delusional to write a book in the first place.
Fair, yeah.
Like there has to be that. There has to be that confidence and that spark and then like I can write a book, you know? And then it's just such a tricky process of like turning that off to turn on your editor brain, but then turning it on to be able to send it to people to get feedback.
It's like
It's a very
it's a it messes with your mind. I was gonna swear, but I was like, oh, I'll try not to.
you can. It's fine.
But it really does mess with your mind because you're like, you do have to have the confidence, but then also you have to be humble because you have to take the feedback and hear the critiques, which are useful and needed. And then you get the passes and it's a wild world in publishing.
It is. It really is. So with that first book, did you query that book?
Yes, I did. I
Did it
did.
get you an agent?
No, it did not. I, and I think one of the reasons why I'm always trying to be someone that is helpful and like provide resources and whatever is because I didn't know what I didn't know. And like granted, partially because I didn't think I needed like to learn at that point because you don't know that you need to learn. Yes, but partially it does kind of feel like there is all this information that's kind of hoarded until you find it, and you don't know where to look. And so I'm always trying to like help people because I didn't know what I didn't know. I queried 100,000 word romance novel. Like what? Like what? Now I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
That's not too crazy though, right?
I
I
mean,
mean, it's up there,
it's
but it's not like so out of the realm.
no, yeah. It was I learned I failed up. Is that like a I think I've heard people saying like I like the
Yeah.
passes and the feedback and everything really did actually help me. Um because without that I wouldn't have been like, okay, something's not working and I need to look into it. And there were so many people when I was first starting out that read my stuff and I think probably were like, oh my God, this person needs to like really learn a lot, which I did. But they were very gracious in telling me, what wasn't working. And then I at least was open to then seeking out how to get better and learn. So,
Yeah. So how many books did you query before finding an agent?
so I had the first romance, which was the normal person, famous person, and that I shelved. I had a partial and a full, so not like the best, but I did get some stuff that made me excited enough to then write a second book. And that one was the one I got my agent with. Well, it was kind of a weird situation because I was also working on a third book, and that third book was what was read, and I got an offer on that, not assuming I'd get an offer. And so then I used that to um, kind of nudge all the agents that had my full and everyone but one passed because they didn't have the time. And that's like a reality of the situation. And knowing what I know now, I probably would have not taken that first offer that on a book that wasn't even polished or I wasn't ready to query. It just was like, so an agent had read it and was like, oh, I'll offer. And I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I thought, again, all of this goes, my whole journey is like something that it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know until like I lived it and now I
Mhm.
know better and I'm hoping that I can help people by sharing it. But looking back, I wish I would have just said no. I'm going to wait to hear back from the agents that have my full with this specific project because I had worked so hard on it, and the thought of like taking this other project and putting that forward, and not subbing, which is it was nine my book Danielle's 9 Dates from Hell. So I did, though, get a second offer on 9 Dates, and that was my agent for about a year and a half.
How did the agent read your book that she offered on
It
that you were like, wait a
it was
minute?
who I was interning for at the time, and they read it. And
Oh,
yeah,
okay, gotcha.
yeah. So
Got it.
that wasn't a privileged part, that I was able to have them read it. But again,
Yeah,
I was not expecting them to. I was honestly expecting them to give me like feedback to be like, "Hey, you got a lot to
right.
do," but instead that happened, and I can tell you now too, that book still does need a lot of work. It was not ready, so a lot of red flags, I guess, I kind of missed, and also a lot of
Mhm.
misunderstanding of how things work and like how everyone is so bit like agents are so busy, and a lot of times notifications of
Mhm.
offers are something that they can't get to even if they want to. I know a lot of people do try and get to them, but it just can be very hard.
So you got your agent with your second book
Mhm.
through a roundabout way with your
Yeah.
third book.
Yes, which that book I'm not even working on now. So that book has been on the back burners for this other fourth book. I write a lot, and which is great,
Yeah,
but it
so do I.
also, yeah, it's for me it's very cathartic and like I don't know, I love it's something I love doing. So then I keep kind of doing it. But yeah,
Mhm.
I did get my agent on my second book that I queried.
And then what happened with that book?
It went on submission. We revised it a lot, and I think that's kind of been the hard part. Kind of on the set on now working on another book is like I listened to every single ounce of feedback I got, even the contradictory stuff, which was then like it just made that story not my own and not what I was intending.
Mhm.
So after going through all the revisions to prior to sub and then going out and sub and then revising it again, and then I just was like, this, I am not excited about this book. I am not excited of the thought of even revising it again if I got
Mhm.
bought. So it went out on sub, and we decided because we were getting feedback that it needed to be revised if we were going to send it out more. But like I said, was just like really not feeling it. So it was kind of like getting shelved, probably an early shelf life, because it just
Mhm.
I now kind of have an idea of what I could do with it, but it's a book that I am gonna need some space from for a bit.
Mhm. That makes sense. And then what happened with your agent?
Yeah. So my agent and I parted ways, and it was not anything that was like malicious or like bad feelings or anything. Like I think that my old agent will do like wonderful things. I think that she is wonderful, and I have the most respect for her. It just was something where working styles just didn't click. And I think we've all kind of had that job where there was someone you worked with, and it just was like you never really connected, and it wasn't because they were a bad person, it's not because you're a bad person, it just wasn't there. So and I think that a lot of times you don't know that even if you have the call, right, because the call's an hour and a half maybe of you getting to know someone. But it just happened over time where I realized that it how things were going were not, I was kind of languishing. And like I said, like I write a lot, but during that time, I wasn't feeling inspired like I usually was. And so that to me was
Mhm.
also a sign that this was something that I think I needed to move on from. And so we parted ways, and I wish her all the best. And like I said, I think she's going to totally take the industry by storm. But for me, I think it was best for me to move on. So now I'm querying my latest book and hoping to find a new partner.
Did you always know you wanted to go the traditional route? Because some people may have experienced those challenges and decided to maybe self-publish. Did you always know traditional publishing was for you?
I kind of explored both options, to be honest, especially because when I was just starting to write and take it seriously, I was like, oh, well, like the self-pub thing seems like a good option. But then you kind of read more, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money. And that's just not like, I mean, the work thing is writing is generally a lot of work. But beyond that, handling the marketing and, doing outreach and all this stuff. And I just was like, oh, I feel like I need that outsourced and I can't pay to have it outsourced. So I will go the traditional route. And granted, I would love to be traditionally published too. That's something that would be so cool to have the distribution and the little emblem of the publisher on my spine. I like,
Hmm.
so, I mean, I can see benefits to both, right? Like, and it's just
Hmm.
deciding what you want to put into it, especially with romance. I feel like self-publishing is a very good opportunity. Um, but obviously the everything is changing too, with a lot of the self-pub being picked up traditionally. And so but yeah, I understand why someone might want to do that, but I think in the end, for me, it was best to go the traditional route.
And then you mentioned you were interning,
Hmm.
and the person you were interning with read your third
Hmm.
book. You're an agent now, is that
Yes,
right?
internship, or I did an internship with the Purcell agency, and I helped Tina Schwartz out, the owner, for about 9 months. And then in October of 2023, she promoted me, which was awesome. And I was there from October to June. And in June, I moved over to Fine Print. So I've been at a new agency since June, and it's been great. And it's so like wild to me that I don't get Sunday scaries. Granted, I'm like always working. There's like not a day I don't really take off, but I don't mind it. I love it. I really wish I had known that this was a career because I grew up in the Midwest. I am from Michigan. So like there's never someone looking at me saying like you can be an author, you can be an agent, because like I don't even think my teachers knew that. I wish I would have found this sooner, obviously. Like probably it's hindsight's 2020. But because I just love it. I love it so much. So I'm so grateful that I have eventually found this. And um yeah.
How did you stumble upon it? How did you find it?
I the internship.
Yeah, or just decide that this was a path you wanted to explore even.
Yeah, so I think when I started beta reading and doing like CPing, people kept saying to me like, "Oh, you give really good feedback," and then I also like really liked giving the feedback, and I was like, okay, let me just. We were moving, and I have a full-time job at my family's vineyard, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with that. And I was like, let me just kind of explore this. An internship, I have nothing to lose, I have everything to gain. So let's just try this. So when I moved, I reached out to Tina because she like the agency is located right near where we moved, and thankfully she was looking for someone and we connected. We actually worked for the same company back in the day, at Cats Media Group, shout out. So we um, connected, and I was lucky enough to be taken on for an internship, so it really was like much easier than I think most people find internships. So I was very, very, very lucky in that.
Are there challenges that come with being an agent and an author?
Yes. I mean, the biggest challenge for me is really keeping it separate, because I don't want to blur a line or cross a line. And so I really try and be intentional with that. And I think the other thing is that I really try and keep, like, agenting has just naturally kind of taken most of the time, which I am totally fine with. But that is hard to kind of, watch something else that you take very seriously kind of like go to the wayside, which maybe naturally that will eventually happen someday. Maybe I'll never get another agent or I'll never get published and I'll have to like, I know that's very like sad. I'm not trying to be negative. It's just like the reality of it. Maybe it'll just naturally play out. And I'm so happy that I still have agenting to be a part of the publishing industry. And I think eventually down the road, I would like to continue to keep trying to do both. I know that
Mhm.
agenting, I don't foresee wanting to ever give up because I really love it. But it is very hard to kind of do both when like I also have a full-time job with my well I say full-time job, it is more seasonal because it's a vineyard, but I have a job and I'm raising two kids, so it's just I think also right now there's just not a lot of time, and reading with intention
Yeah.
takes time, writing takes time, it all takes a lot of time. So that's probably what makes it the hardest is the lack of time.
Hmm. Yeah. I bet when do you find time to write? That
Um,
seems like a very packed schedule.
yeah, yes, it is. I mean, I think it's kind of been good actually for me because I used to write in a flurry. Like I would just write and get it out and it would just be like I'd spit it out and it would be underwritten, but a story would be done and it would be in really rough shape. And but now because I have less time, I'm more intentional. I mean, granted, it's still in rough shape, but I'm more intentional with what I write. And I have found I'm more satisfied with my product, my writing and the story with taking my time. So actually having this smaller time to write, I think has been beneficial with how I'm writing, if that makes sense. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I write in small increments between my agenting, my parenting, and my full-time job. It is the lowest thing on the pole, I guess.
How do you query as an agent? That also seems like it has its own challenges.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of imposter syndrome, or I don't know what the proper word is, but I feel like like I should have a certain caliber because, but I think it's also just because I agent and I know craft wise and what writing should on a line level, what I would like it to look like, doesn't mean also that I immediately, my first words on the pages are beautiful and wonderful. Like I am still human and I still make mistakes and I still tell the story to myself before, showing it to others. So
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
still a lot that I don't get right as a writer, but I'm upfront in my query letter that I am an agent. And I think there are a lot of agents who also write because I think a lot of us get into it because we love writing, and then we realize we also love doing all these other things. Um, but yeah, I'm upfront about it, and I do kind of feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome. But I'm hoping I can, reach both dreams of being a successful agent and a successful, at least published author, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few agents that do both. Like Nikki Payne, I think, does both, and Jenna Satherwhite
Yep. Yeah.
does both.
And Jenna's like my dream. If I can be like Jenna, I'll be happy. She's rocking
Yeah,
it with
right. Did
all
you read Made for You? It was so good.
it was so good. I listened to it and it was
It really was.
yeah, it was yeah, I ate it up. So yeah. If I can be like her, I'd be very happy.
Do you ever feel stuck in your writing? Like I know you only have so much time, so maybe that helps a little bit, but have you ever been in a place where you felt stuck?
I think more so, with 9 dates and revising so much, I kind of felt stuck with it because it just like I said, wasn't mine anymore, and I didn't have a vision because I just was like, what is this? So I guess in that sense, I've been stuck, and I, again, also was kind of languishing for a bit, and the motivation wasn't there, which was a little scary. But yeah, as far as like when I'm writing and in it, I mean, I'm sure there are moments where I feel really stuck, but it's not something that lasts months and months. It kind of is like I'm kind of someone that is like just keep pushing through, and once you get it on the paper, you can go back and fix it. So if I don't feel like what I'm writing is like great, I'm like just keep going. I guess.
So you just write through it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. When you were learning more about your craft after writing your first book, how did you go about doing that? Did you read books or take classes?
I reached out to an author, and I hope they're okay with me sharing this because I actually was just messaging with them. Um, I'm so grateful that they helped me find the community. They said go to Twitter, and then they gave me a few other resources of like how to become a better writer. And honestly, without them, I would not be where I am today. I know that's like really deep and like, but like I am eternally grateful. And so once I kind of went on Twitter and put a call out of like, what do you do? Which also like I don't do Twitter anymore. I'm over on Blue Sky. But back in the day. Um,
Mhm.
but everyone was talking about the shit no one tells you about writing, so I started listening to that, and then they have all their courses. Cece has again another agent I would love to emulate as far as like just the level of the books that she helps sell, and like I just am like I I bow down. But and
Mhm.
then if I could be an author that she quotes in one of her classes, again, also,
Isn't that the dream,
right?
right? Oh my
Right?
gosh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I
So
would lose it.
I would be like, okay, retired, done, good. No, but so they were a great kind of entry point, and then Jane Friedman has a bunch of kind of like more less expensive, I guess. Most some of her stuff, especially craft wise, is like $25, which has been great. Tiffany Yates Martin does those. So I took a lot of classes to be honest, which can be cost prohibitive for many. And I will say that like I don't have a ton of money to spend on it, so I really was intentional with what I chose. And there are a lot of free resources out there. I learned a lot because I had really good beta readers and critique partners, and I learned from them and listened to them and their critiques, and that helped me get better. And you know it just reading a lot. I know that's like you kind of hear the same thing over and over, and it's like but you hear it because it's true and it
Mhm.
works for most people. I think also reading for people helped me get better, realizing, being able to put a word to what I find isn't working and then being like, oh, wait, guess what? I'm doing that too. Um, and then my favorite recent book that has really helped elevate my writing um, is Janice Hardy's uh, Understanding Show Don't Tell and really understanding it. And like I knew Show Don't Tell. I could find it in writing or in when I was reading, but in my writing, I was still doing it. And that book really shout out to Kathy at Marcel Lyon. She's the reason why I inhaled that and have really relied on it. So it's kind of in stages too, right? Like you have to get the story right before you can get
Mhm.
the I mean, you can write really well and not have a good story and or you could have a great story and not really like have the line level down. So it's like marrying those. And I think I how I focused it, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but how I focused on it was starting with really understanding the fundamentals of how to tell a story and then moved on to oh but then you also have to have this writing and I really then have been focusing on that.
Mhm. And has the way you have taken feedback now and applied it changed since the book that no longer felt like yours?
Yeah, I think I've really had to just pull out and distinguish like the people that understand my story. And I won't lie, like I've had moments where I've like really spiraled based on feedback still. Um, because I think I'm still working through like how I handled 9 dates. And listening and being open to all of it to then kind of like getting this feedback now and being like, oh, okay, wait, is this stuff I need to listen to, or is this going to send me down a road of a path of making the story not what I want it to be? So, in that regard, it is nice that I have many people reading for me because other people can kind of come in and be once you kind of find the through line of all the feedback that's similar versus what kind of stuck out in one or two people. Like, I'm like, okay, if I can see a through line with what people are saying, that's what I need to pay attention to versus one person saying one thing one time. And sometimes that stuff is the stuff that screams the loudest. Um,
Yeah.
and so that is,
It depends on who's saying it too, right? Because like, what
mhm,
if it's one of your critique partners saying
right,
it?
right. And even then, I think sometimes you can have this rapport and really good relationship with someone, but sometimes they might not get the story, because
Mhm.
whatever, you might have changed genres of what you're writing, or so I think it can still be dependent on the story, along with who, like you said, who's saying it.
It's such a hard balance to
Yeah,
find.
feedback is so hard.
Yeah.
It is.
It's hard to take and then like it's hard to figure out what to take and what to leave. It's definitely like its own beast. How did you find your writing voice? Did you always have it? Was it there from the very first book? Or has that evolved as well?
So a lot of my feedback on the first book was like people weren't connecting with the voice, and I didn't really understand it until I was writing 9 dates, and just it was like literally one day where I wrote a sentence and I was like, that's my voice. Like, it was not me like intentionally trying to learn it, because I think it's a very hard thing to learn because it's something that's so unique to you. Um, but I wrote it and I revised 9 dates. I remember being like, okay, this has a voice now. And that was like, I was working from my phone as my kids were playing trains, and it was like literally just one moment of being like figuring it out. I know that's not very helpful for others, but that's just what worked for me.
Do you
But
think it, do you think it came from just writing more, or is there like it was just something that just came out?
yeah, I mean, I think I knew I needed to find a voice, and that was something that I needed to
Right.
address. And maybe it was something I was reading at the time that was really voicey, and I realized, not emulating it, but like I realized that my story didn't sound like it had a voice. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer, because I wish I could do something to
That's
help.
okay.
I wish I could do something to help people like figure it out, but it literally was just something. And I think it does help that if you're well read, that you can recognize other people's
Yeah.
voices to understand like what a voice is.
I think it does help to read really voicey writing. I
Hmm.
mean, that's not going to ultimately end up being your voice and your writing, but at first, when you get that feedback, because I feel like everyone gets that feedback at first, like I didn't connect with the voice. Um, so at that first stage, reading like really voicey stuff really helped me kind of figure out at least what they were talking about.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with
Yeah.
us. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I would love to be someone to someone just starting, as that person was to me. So if anyone's ever, trying to find their community or really needing to get more information, please like don't hesitate to DM me on social media or whatever, because I just would like, I want to be helpful and encouraging and uplifting, and because this industry is so hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I'll link all of your stuff
Awesome. Thank you.
so they can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Christine Goss mentioned the book Understanding Show Don't Tell and Really Getting It by Janice Hardy. And so that is the February craft book club pick for the So I Wrote a Book Now What craft book club. If you want to join us and read along, head to my Patreon or my Substack or my Instagram for more information on how to do that. What do you think about craft books? Are you a fan or no? It's pretty divided whether you really get a lot out of that kind of learning or not. I personally do. I really like craft books, and I think it's the lowest stakes way to really up your writing game, but it's not for everyone. If you are a craft book fan, let me know in the comments what book you want us to do for the month of March. Yeah. And if you really like this episode or other episodes, please consider liking or subscribing. It really helps people find this show. Thanks. Bye.